And I say that to a lot of the people who join our business. I'm really good at certain things, I'm rubbish at other things. And there's other people in our business who are really good at certain things and rubbish at other things. And I say to people who join our business, if they want to be that sponge and they want to learn and they want to try and develop, it's cherry pick all the good bits from different people.
Yeah.
And if you can combine all those good bits at yourself, you become a better person, you become a more rounded person and better at all the individual different things.
So Mark, thanks for having us.
Nice to see you, Theo.
It was a hell of a journey.
3 hours? 3 hours on the train?
Was it 3 or 4?
3.5.
3.5. Yeah. It was lovely though. First time in Newcastle. Amazing. I'm going to do the little intro, introduce you. So guys, this is Mark James, CEO. CEO, Differentology, one of the coolest research agencies in the UK. Tell us about you and how you came into the industry, and don't start with the same cliche that everyone says, which is, I just fell into market research.
Do you know what? I've only met one guy who said that he started in market research.
You need to come down to London more often.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of my background, privileged to a certain extent in that, did a degree in Nottingham University. If I'm honest, was quite a shy kid at that point in time, and people take different things out of studying and different things out of university. For me, it was the social thing that I took out, just coming out of my shell a little bit, getting to know people, dicked around, for lack of a better phrase, for 3 years at uni, if I'm honest. Didn't learn a hell of a lot other than just turning up to lectures and getting to know people. So I think for me, that early day pre-market research and coming into a career was very much about finding myself and who I am and my voice, and trying to find out who I was and a little bit more about myself. So probably not a traditional thing in terms of did a degree, looked at what I wanted to do as a job afterwards.
What was the degree?
So did a degree in, I started off doing computer science.
Oh, okay.
Just because someone I knew who did computer science was getting paid loads of money, and that was the honest reason that I did it. Choice of degree, and just didn't like. French was my worst language at school when I did French, and computer programs a little bit like doing a second language, right? So just didn't take the computer science at all. Switched to do a general management degree, which was good and covered different types of business models and things like that, managing people, which has come in handy, more lately in my career. But I guess really from that perspective, didn't really walk into university with an idea of what I wanted to do off the back end of it. Came out of university, still didn't have a clue what the hell I wanted to do, to be honest. No. Just kind of came out with a degree, brilliant, but loads of other people had degrees and it wasn't a differentiating factor. It was just something that I'd kind of gone through and done. Sat at home for a little while. My mum got a bit, I went back home, back to Newcastle from Nottingham, sat in the house to the point where my mum sent me down to the Army Careers Office to say that
really?
you're not doing much here, you need to get down. Hated the idea
of
just I think they kind of shocked me a little bit in terms of the real world, and you need to get out there and start doing something. Walked into the Army Careers Office, and the guy literally started barking orders at me straight away, and I didn't like that at all. So I knew the army wasn't for me as a career. But that was with good intent from my mother. A bit of a shock to the system to say, actually, do you know what, I've messed around here, I need to start taking life a bit more serious and get on and find my way with what I want to do. So again, privileged to a certain extent in that went on to do a master's degree.
Okay.
Did a master's degree in marketing, completely different experience to undergraduate university degree. Messed around at university, went to do a master's degree, the complete polar opposite, took it massively seriously, paid my way through it, it was expensive. But I got a lot out of that from a learning perspective. That was a proper school of learning stuff. Did that master's degree in marketing, and naturally I found as I went through that I just enjoyed certain aspects of it, which went on to lend itself to market research. So for all I wasn't looking at a career in market research at that point in time, there were certain aspects of the studying. So I found I was good with numbers, always been good at maths, at school and A-levels and GCSE and stuff. Always good with numbers. But I like the desk research aspect of looking through. And I found what I was really good at was not speed reading in the sense that, you can read through something, but the idea of reading through something really quickly and being able to kind of pick up on certain threads and narrative and think back to, I read a different article the week before and it linked to that somehow, and there was another article I read 3 days ago and it linked to that. And part of the degree that I did, so that was the grounding in market research, if you like, was that idea of pulling in different resources and different ideas, whether it's now quantitative research, qualitative research, just observing human behaviour or data and bring that all together into something that makes a difference to a research project. So that was my early days pre coming into a career, was just developing those skills a little bit to understand a little bit more about what I could then go on to do. Managed to land a job as a graduate within a market research firm within the data department.
Which
Company called Dipsticks Research, so DRG, Hexham, northeast based. Fascinating, really small company. So we talk a little bit about the size of our companies and the journey that we're on with our businesses. And it was that start of life. I think I was the first graduate that they took on. There was, I think, 5 people in the business at the time.
Wow, yeah.
And throughout, I actually worked there for 10 years, which is quite rare in today's economy with people jumping around and stuff like that. So worked for, I think it was 10 or 12 years I was there. Grew with the company, so going from a kind of 5 or 6 person team, by the time I left I think there was about 50.
Whoa.
And ended up going from right at the bottom as the first entrance level that kind of came in, right up to board director, getting to understand how the business works and everything that went in between. Fantastic grounding, so exposed to clients at a really young age. And in that startup mentality, you've got to do everything right. You've got to roll your sleeves up and you get chucked into the deep end on a bunch of different stuff, and it's sink or swim. Thankfully swam more times than sunk. And found I was pretty good at what I did. Gradually progressed through the ranks there. So it's typical market research career where you start.
How was that sort of progression? So you started off data side.
So yeah, data side quickly found that I was good with clients. Right. And just as a personality type, I like to please people, and I think that helps when you're client facing, just to over deliver a lot of the times. So started off on the data side, did that for about a year, which was great to get the grounding of how the data side of market research works, just number crunching day in, day out, data entry through to data cleansing, through to data tables. And then moved more onto the research side. Again, got promoted reasonably quickly throughout that kind of 10-year career, I guess, where it was research exec, senior research exec, research manager, senior manager, AD, director, and then kind of board level director. An amazing experience, met some really good people. I think I try and talk a little bit to some of the people who are coming up in my business now who haven't got that experience, just what my experiences were like, to try and share with them, so hopefully they can learn from that. I'll learn from their experiences and we kind of rub off on each other. But part of that kind of 10-year journey that I went on, you come across people in life who are just really good at their job, who are really good managers. You come across people who aren't that good, and who aren't that good managers, or who are good at a certain thing and not quite good at another thing. And I think the experience for me is, people used to describe me a little bit like a sponge, where you try and soak up all the good bits of different people, and you try and identify the good bits of people. And I say that to a lot of the people who join our business. I'm really good at certain things, I'm rubbish at other things. And there's other people in our business who are really good at certain things and rubbish at other things. And I say to the people who join our business, if they want to be that sponge and they want to learn and they want to try and develop, it's cherry pick all the good bits from different people. Yeah. And if you can combine all those good bits at yourself, you become a better person, you become a more rounded person and better at all the individual different things.
No, that's good advice for work and life in general. I really liked what you just said there about the types of people. There's some who are really good at their one craft, some who are not so but can pick up from others. I think there's a third as well, which is like the one who is similar to the second, but hungry to go through and just believes that they can learn all of the different things. Because I mean, take you for an example. You know, you've crossed over from the different sectors and the different skill sets with, you know, relative ease.
Yeah.
You know, there's some people who need to stay on that one channel and keep going on that one channel, but not jumping from different channels.
I think,
do you get what I mean?
Yeah, hunger's an interesting one. And you know, massively hungry. You know, like you don't start a business, you don't start your own business without thinking you can do it and having a certain drive and a certain energy. We talked a little bit about you know, the energy that you've got when you start the business, and you're in that kind of startup mode. You do everything, and you've got loads of ideas, and that idea a minute we kind of talked a little bit about, which is great. But I think you're right. That hunger, it's hard to put your finger on, right? And we recruit people similar to yourselves, where it isn't just about qualifications, it's about life experience, and it's about where they've come from, their background, and what drives them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to put your finger on some of those things. It's not a box that you tick where it's, you know, it's a degree or it's a you know, a course that you've done or whatever it is.
It's fire of some sort.
It's that fire, and I think you know, we're a growing business, and we've learned along the years we've recruited some really great people, and we've recruited some people who haven't quite worked out for one reason or another. And I think you just learn from your experience, and we've probably been guilty in the past of hiring people based on qualifications and on paper and what they look like. And more latterly, I think the importance of culture is huge.
Yeah.
It's just massive in terms of hiring people who fit in with the mentality of you as a business, but also who bring something different to the party, who come from a slightly different background, from a different experience, who can help you learn. You know, I'm the chief exec, I've been doing this, but I don't know everything. Yeah. And that's a key thing where we try and recruit people who don't put themselves on that pedestal where they think they know everything. Yeah. Everyone needs to learn. Every single day I learn stuff from the newest person in our business. Yeah. And interestingly, we talk about the first 100 days that someone joins the company is absolutely critical, where they come with that fresh eyes approach, where they've come from a different background or a different experience. We don't want people to be institutionalised the wrong word, but probably after about 3.5 months, you become used to the way that things are within a business. It's true. For those first 100 days, it's all fresh, to the point of like, where are the toilets, why they're doing something that way, you know, it processes, systems, who we work with, the type of work that we do. And I think for me, we try and encourage people in those first 100 days in particular to come with new ideas and challenge us as a senior management team. Challenge us on how we can make this a better place for everyone. Yeah. And I think if you go in with that mentality and you don't lose it, and then beyond that 100 days, we still challenge people to do it. So we still try and keep that open-minded frame of mind where people are saying, actually, is that the right way to do things? And I think if you do challenge preconceptions, part of why we're called Differentology, we want to be different. But it isn't just different for the sake of it. Yeah. It's different to try and make things better. Yeah. And I think that's the key. And if you can do that, then culturally you'll have a good business. If you get the right people in, you've got a good business. No, absolutely. And people drive your business forward ultimately when you're client facing and you're in a consultancy like us. It's about the people. Absolutely. You know, every single word of that, just plaque that and stick that on the wall. That's spot on. I mean, I saw something the other day, or a few months ago, you know the term culture fit. Yeah, okay. And they were saying, let's do away with that and start looking at new candidates as where they score on culture contribution. Yeah, okay. You know, because culture fit just means more of the same. Yeah. Right? But culture contribution means where's the missing puzzle piece, and is this person the missing puzzle piece? At the same time though, you know, if the company itself doesn't have a strong enough culture, then the new people who come in will bring a different culture and potentially shift the culture into something that you as a leader don't want it to be either. So I think there does have to be strong foundations. But as I say, the missing puzzle pieces, it's all about trying to find those missing puzzle pieces. You're right, it evolves, right? So, you know as well as I do, as the founding, person in your business, I was the founding person in Differentology. And you do get, in those early days, it's you are the business. And I think the bigger that you grow and the more different voices that come into the business, you've just got to shift, like the culture shifts. It's less about you. So yes, I quite like the idea of the bedrock where you set the foundations, as you say. But every new person that we hire brings a slightly different outlook on life and brings something slightly different, and the culture shifts. You bring one more person into the room, and it just shifts, or virtual rooms or whatever we do like these days. It does shift, and I'm fascinated by that. And I think if you get the right people into the business, then it just improves it for the better.
Well, this is it. As long as it's shifting for the better. So I guess as a job for you in terms of leadership, when you grow into that size, it's just keeping an eye on where that shift is going.
Yeah.
And identifying why and making sure that it's the right direction.
I mean, we've got to the point where we're only about 30 people as a business, so we're still reasonably small in the large scale of
I hear this.
firms.
The other day I was with who was it? The nursery. And they're like, we're only 40 people. We're still small. Like, it's not small.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? It's all relative in what your ambitions are and where you want to go. So we're still on that mission. We've got big ambitions to grow and get bigger, and we're still on double-digit growth year on year, which is great. But there's a hunger and there's an ambition still to drive us to the next level. But I think, from a recruitment perspective, I think I'm still across pretty much all recruitments.
Yeah.
So everyone who comes into the business I want to have had a conversation with. But equally, it's acknowledging that I can't be across everything.
Yeah.
And we've got some really great people who we've brought into the business for a reason. And part of it is me letting go a little bit to say, actually, we've hired them for a reason. They know the culture, they're setting the culture themselves.
Yeah.
And for them to do the hiring as well. So for all that, I'll get involved. They'll have the ultimate say in terms of whether they come into their team because it's a good fit for them, it's a good fit for the business. So there's a lot of trust, I think.
That's
trust
real leadership, though. That is real leadership because, the sort of leadership which is, well, I make all the decisions, so just do as I say, that's insecure. You hired them for a reason, as you said, because you believe in them. So then let them shine and let them do
I think there's you've got it right. You've got it in terms of what we've talked about historically, where you bring in people in, you give them a chance, and you're letting them shine. That's some of the words that you used, and it's great to hear that. I think for me, part of what we're doing as a growing agency, culture shifts and culture adapts over time. We've actually, for all we're only 30 people, we've actually taken one member of staff who was full-time on the research side, split her role, so she's got a dedicated culture role within the business. We think it's that important. Yeah. That's massive for us. I know bigger agencies will have that, and they'll have HR departments, and they've got all that.
It doesn't matter what other people are doing.
For us, we're trying to make money. We're trying to grow. We're trying to employ more people. We're trying to give people opportunities. We can only do that if the culture's right. We can only grow if the culture's right. Part of taking someone from a client-facing role and if we're honest, a revenue-generating role, to focus on an internal process, which is culture, is massive. In terms of when you're looking at P&Ls and profit and loss and stuff like that, and justifying to a certain extent why you're taking someone from that revenue-generating role to an internal process. But we believe in it, and we think it's massive. And I think we'll certainly see. It's part of my role, but it's part of everyone's role within the business. But particularly a dedicated person who we've got in there to really drive it forward and help us kind of move in the right direction.
I think you touched on something there because, first of all, I agree 100%, and having someone dedicated to it makes 100% sense. But it's very difficult to quantify it, especially if you're taking someone who, if everything is revenue generating, then you look at each person in the team and saying, okay, how much are they getting paid versus how much are they bringing in or value, and then you try and do that balance. It's difficult to do that with D&I teams and people who are doing these internal work. But there has to be a way, and perhaps maybe it's more just going to be a case of, well, let's see where we're at a couple years from now and do but even then you can't tell because you could have grown for 100 different reasons.
I think there's softer metrics, right? And we are financially driven and we've done amazingly well. We've grown throughout the pandemic, which is brilliant. We've got the double-digit year-on-year growth. We grew revenue 40% over the last 12 months. We're doing good. And we do have the GP per head revenue fees, revenue generating client facing people, what the gross profit per head is. We've got all those kind of metrics that we sit down and discuss every month. But there's a real acknowledgement within our boardroom that it's more than just that. Yeah. And that looks great on paper, but so shit. There's other stuff and there's softer metrics that you need to get right to grow as a business. So we're still learning, to be honest. We're learning, I'm learning every day. People challenge us in terms of what we're doing. At a board, which we welcomely encourage, honestly, you need to have that, I think, where you're not afraid for someone to say, actually, why the hell are you doing it that way? Or if you thought about doing it a slightly different way. And what we really try and do, Theo, it doesn't matter where a good idea comes from. It doesn't matter on how senior you are within the business, what your job title is, what you're getting paid, all the rest of it. it's about just good brains, and we hire good people to help us get better. And one of our core, I think one of it's not a USP because other people can do it and can copy it, and I'm not giving away too much by saying it.
We've got the same on our golden rule, so I was smiling because
it's not a USP, but in terms of what we try and do with our clients, I always talk about whenever I go to a pitch with clients, I talk about one of the key things that we try and do is get the right project team and getting the right brains in the room. Clients know their business better than we do. We probably know what we know, which is research, and we're really good at it. But we need to kind of work with them in terms of they know the business better than we do, they know the stakeholder groups, they know what they want to do. We know how to deliver on that. But I think if you get the right people in the room and you can have open conversations and frank conversations with people, and you know, in the right way, so it's not trying to put people out or, you know, criticise or whatever, but at the same time, it's asking questions. But asking questions in the right way. And if you've got the right people who appreciate that, you get a much better outcome because you challenge each other. And we say that with people within our business as well, not just clients and not just people who are on project teams, but internally. Doesn't matter who you are in the business, challenge us. You know, challenge yourself, challenge us. How can we make this a better place for everyone?
I think you've touched on something real strong there. Like, you know, everyone, the word confrontation or confrontational gives this sort of like negative connotation where it's like, oh, you know, but there's nothing wrong with challenging something if you think it's wrong. And it can be done in a nice way. It doesn't have to be done, hey, you're a blah, 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 blah. It could just be, I think this is wrong. Seriously, I think this is wrong. Look into it. There's nothing negative about that.
But you've got to encourage that, right? You've got to encourage that in your business for people to feel empowered to be able to do it. And again, that comes back to culture. You know, it's all part of who you are as a business, how you know, as a leader to a certain extent, how approachable you are as an individual. And if I'm honest, I struggled over lockdown. You know, I'm quite introverted as a character. I talked a little bit before about how university was great for me from a personality perspective, not great in terms of learning, but in terms of just getting out there and meeting people.
Getting out of your shell.
You know, getting out of my shell. And for me, for all, lockdown was great because I was at home and spent more time with the kids and work-life balance, amazing for all those reasons. But I felt disconnected from the team to a certain extent. There's, you know, when you're sat behind a camera and it becomes forced sometimes when you're having to do a weekly meeting. Loads of people in our business were amazing at it, and we've got really good individuals who just kept the motivation going, and there were real leaders in those like Zoom calls. I was horrendous.
Really?
Just I'm not. That's not me. You know, I don't like to sit behind a camera. I hate all this setup. You know, it's not natural to me. If I'm honest, you know, it's not natural. As an introverted character, and I think for me, getting back to face stuff to me, it's great to meet you. Great to meet you for the first time face to face. We've talked and we've done Zooms and stuff, but there's nothing like meeting people.
I agree.
And I think for me, we're back to like, you know, a hybrid model where it's you know, a few days in the office, a few days at home, work-life balance, and but at the same time getting out and seeing your colleagues and going for drinks and just bonding over stupid things, you know.
You can't replace it. You know, we were laughing earlier about the Christmas party doing Zoom charades. You know, I mean, hilarious, but you can't replace that sort of human interaction, especially with team building. But before we look, so I want to get into the story, the origin story of Differentology. But before I do that, you touched on the hunger when you were talking about, you know, that was always there and that's been the drive. And I look at the way that you guys have been going, the trajectory that you're going on, 40%, you know, increase year on year, stuff like this. I want to ask you, where do you think that drive comes from? Do you know, or is it just something that's...
It's such a difficult question. And honestly, like, unless I sat on like a psychologist's couch and I went through like my background and I haven't got a clue. I think the honest answer is people in our roles will probably talk about something that happened or a trigger or just how they are or whatever. Honestly, haven't got a clue. It's just something that's in you, and it's hard to describe and it's hard to put your finger on. I like winning. I know I am competitive as a person. I like to win. You know, I don't mind admitting that. You know, from sport achievements through to business life. And it's funny because that hunger changes a little bit. You've still got that hunger to drive your business forward. And we talk a little bit about how businesses evolve over time. And in the early days for me, when I first set up Differentology, it was all about winning. And whenever you win a project, you felt it so much.
Yeah.
You know, the smallest, like, you know, you won. We do like, you know, 400-500 grand projects now. You won like a $5 grand project, and God, it was such a good feeling.
Yeah.
And that idea that I think it's the reward for all the tears, heartache that you put into things. It's tough, you know, being a business owner is tough. When you make a success of it, everyone looks at you and thinks how brilliant it is, but there's tough moments and you challenge yourself so hard. So I think for me, in the early days, that hunger was driven by the need to win and the want to win. When the business grows, I talk a little bit about how a little bit of advice someone gave to me was that once your business gets to about 15 people, there's a lot of businesses that go from like one person bands to 15 people. And it's a hard journey, but there's a lot of businesses can do that. When you're at the size of 15 people, it's all about the founder, and you build a team around that founder. When you go from the journey of where we've gone from 15 people to 30 people, it's more than just about you. It's about other people in the business and about the business as a whole and as a collective. And nowadays I've kind of gone from those early startup days where it was my hunger and it was my passion and it was me feeling the need to win, to actually recruiting the right people who can come in and help drive the business forward.
And bring their own hunger and need to win.
And now my enjoyment, if you like, from business comes more from seeing other people succeed than it does from me winning a £500,000 project. Yeah. It's more other people winning £5 projects for the first time, or winning a £500,000 project, or whatever it is. Seeing people develop, I think that's one of the key drivers, and you need that in a people-based business. Yeah, 100%.
It becomes more like a coaching role and a mentoring almost.
Yeah, you still become the dustbin for all the shit that happens in the business is the other thing. It isn't all glamorous.
Who was it that said that? That's Elon Musk.
Is it right? Yeah, he copied me. I didn't even know he said that, seriously. But in all honesty, like I think I've gone from, in the early days it was all about just doing cool projects and doing really interesting things. So we work with like, you know, Sky TV, Channel 4, Global Radio, HSBC, Disney. We work with some really cool companies and do some really cool stuff. In the early days for me it was all about projects and innovative methodologies and facial coding and galvanic skin response and neuroscience and IoT and just really cool methodologies. For me now it went from projects and methodologies and doing cool stuff and winning to then become about building a team, growing a business, growing a culture, to then almost take a step back from that and encouraging other people to drive the business forward. And we've got James Dickey who joined the business as the second employee back in 2014. He's now a business owner, sits on the board. We've got Lizzie Gilthorpe who came in, who we're kind of like yin and yang. Like I'm quant background, she's qual background. Completely different experiences, completely different personalities, completely different people, but challenge each other in a really good way. Yeah. Like when we talk about challenging each other in the right way, not afraid to have those good conversations to just say, why are you doing it that way, or why are you doing it that way, and then figure out a better way. And I think they've come into the business as the next generation, if you like. I'm still a young man, I'm only 42, so there's still hunger, there's still drive.
Still on the football team.
Still on the other 40s football team. But in all seriousnness, like just getting some people who come in with new ideas helps drive the business forward.
Definitely.
The role as a CEO naturally evolves over time. Less about it was in the early days, which was projects, just winning and delivering and the hunger to drive on. Now it's more about developing people. It's about them coming on in their careers, and part of what I can do is just lend my experience. And when you think about some people who come into the business and they haven't got as much experience, problems for them, small problems become big problems, and their stress level, you can see their stress levels rising, almost because it's an unknown, and that's where stress comes, is where you don't know how to solve something in your brain, your natural fight or flight comes in, or whatever it is, the psychology side of it, where it's problem solving. And part of my role as chief exec, because I have got that experience of having solved a lot of the problems, is just being there for people, where they can come and say, actually, Mark, this is happening on a project, and it's kind of sharing with them. You only have to do it once, and the people that we've got are so bright and intelligent that they'll pick up on that, they'll learn from it, and they'll take that into their careers moving forward. So part of the role of chief exec now, if I'm honest, is taking more of a back seat. Get involved to a certain extent on some projects to keep my hand in, because I still like to stay sharp.
I wanted to ask you about that.
So still love live projects, but more and more just kind of helping people out and solving problems is what you need to do as a
I guess, I mean, you spoke about it already, but it's remaining approachable enough for them to be confident enough to come to you, because, you know, if you weren't so approachable, they might want to come and say, oh, hey, can you help with this? But think, oh, I'm going to look like an idiot. I might get sacked. Better not. So it's creating that environment, creating that culture. Yeah. But what you touched on a second ago about actually still getting involved so that you can just stay sharp, because, you know, you get higher and higher into the ivory tower. You forget how to actually do what got you there in the first place, you know, and if you don't keep on checking in. We were joking about it the other day because Carly, our senior project manager, she was basically saying to me, I think you've forgotten how to run projects, because, you know, this and that. And it's like, I'll still get in there. It was like challenging, and Sarah was like, you know, we should do a video, Theo back on the shop floor. But it's funny, but it's like, leaders need to do this, because how are you going to tell someone to do something you don't even know how to do it yourself?
I think you've got to. You know, I've always had that mentality where you lead by example, and you don't ask someone. You know, it's bullshit. Like, you know, marketing speak or employee speak or whatever, where you say, you know, you don't ask someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. But it's true, man.
It's true.
It's true. You've got to do that, and you know, to the point that, you know, delegation is a key skill, and if anything, I've learned to delegate. And, you know, I am one of those people who do like to control things as a personality and want to know everything that's going on and dive in and solve problems, because that's who I am. You know, I like to solve problems. But you've got to temper that, because, you know, you know, as an individual, you've got to let people figure out their own mistakes. And for all, I'm there to help when things mightn't go according to plan. Sometimes you've got to let people figure it out themselves and do that. But yeah, massive believer in people making mistakes, as long as they only make one mistake and then they learn from it and move on. That's the key thing.
Never
right?
make the same mistake twice.
Exactly right. You know, again, you know, stuff that you hear people say, but it's so true. So true that
I'm full of one-liners. Like I'm eating the one-liner book. Bob was saying, it's like, how do everything is a one-liner?
That's good. But it's so true. You know, you kind of got to give people enough rope, right?
You have to. Enough rope. I don't like that one, but I know you
I was just hitting you back with the one-liner. It's the only one I've got, and it wasn't a very good one.
But you're spot on. It's about giving people the room to grow. I heard there was something someone said the other day, which is like, a good leader prunes their own branches to let the light in for the next plants to then grow.
Yeah, okay, you know? Nice. I like that.
But yeah, like staying sharp. Staying on it, I think it's a challenge, especially as you start getting into organisations as they grow past that. You know, we're talking about when the next stage for you guys, that 50 plus, and you're going into like the 100 people. At that stage, how do you really stay on the shop floor? But if you do, or you at least take some time to analyse that, then you might be spotting like errors in the systems that you can say, actually, you know what?
I mean, it's tough, right? Because as a business, we're yet to get there. So we're 30 people, and to a certain extent, it's all hands on deck, and I'll roll my sleeves up as rest as the next person to get a job done, and you've got to have that, and that's the startup mentality that we're talking about. But I'd hate to be sat here in a few years' time, and for us to be 50 or 100 people, and for me to be sat in some ivory tower, as you described it, and not rolling my sleeves up, and not getting stuck in, and not doing stuff. And I think for me, a key part of our next transition of growth is not losing that startup mentality, and to get like-minded people in the business who share that mentality. And I think if we can recruit the right people who come in and who can develop it, it's more about sharing it than it is about stepping back and not being involved.
So tell me about Differentology early days. Tell me about seed of the idea all the way to...
Yeah, so Differentology, founded Differentology in 2013. So we've just had our 9th birthday, which is amazing. I only know that because my eldest boy is 10, and he was 1 when we set up. That's how I do the mental maths of how the kind of business is. So it's funny because we've had some really great successes over the years. You know, we won the 2019 MRS Breakthrough Business of the Year, which is amazing.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there in your
burgundy suit.
I was going to say purple suit, but burgundy suit. So we've had some really successes. We've won team awards, we've won innovation awards. We've been really, lucky to a certain extent. Although luck's how you make it, right? Been really lucky in kind of what we've won and what we've done. What was the question?
I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to work out what was the spark. So you were at Dipsticks?
Yeah.
You went all the way up top of the chain at Dipsticks, and then something must have happened for you to say, you know what? I'm going to go rogue, I'm going to do my own thing.
Do you know what, Theo? It goes back to the question that you asked before about drive and hunger and where does that come from? I don't know where the drive and hunger comes from. I can't pinpoint it to a certain point in my life or a certain event. So
if it's not the trait, what happened?
So the same, I guess the same with that, in terms of that transition. You hear some business owners who say, I've always wanted to own a business. I've never known what I want to do.
Really?
Honestly, like in life, like we talked about market research, didn't really want to do market research, but then found I was good at it, came in it and have developed. Don't know whether I really wanted to own a business. I guess deep down I probably did, but it wasn't a mental thought to say, right, I'm going to go off and own a business. I'm quite strange in that capacity, in that it's about opportunities that come your way. And I've always been that about grasping opportunities and moving forward, rather than being this is the plan and this is the direction. We talked a little bit about it in our business, where it isn't a sat nav. You're on a journey, but it's not a sat nav where you're going here, you turn left, you turn right, you turn left, and then you're there at your destination. There's an ultimate destination where, you know, I deep down somehow wanted to own a business. But it's about taking opportunities along the way to develop yourself, and then if an opportunity does come, grasping it.
I get that.
So I think there's a little bit about how there is an end goal, and there is a destination, but it's about figuring your own path on the journey there, rather than being completely single-minded. This is the only way you can get there.
I saw a meme the other day that had like what people think it is, it's a straight line from A to B, and what it really is like all the way. But the idea is that there's still the idea of where B is. So talk me through the first opportunity then. Was it just like a freelance gig?
I guess it's probably worth telling you a little bit about the background of the business. So back in 2013, was working in another research agency, pretty much gone as far as I could there, non-equity director. Like the idea of just owning a business. And I think that the next level for me was going beyond running a business and running projects and running teams to like really understanding P&Ls. So rather than looking at P&L, feeling a P&L. And when it's your money, right? It's your business, you feel the P&L. And I think that's the greatest business exposures, where you chuck yourself in the deep end, and it's that sink or swim thing again. In the first 6 months of Differentology and setting up the business, incredibly hard. I think we won maybe one client project in 6 months. And it was month 1 loss, month 2 loss, month 3 loss, month 4 loss, month 5 loss.
Where did you get the capital?
Month 6. So self-funded, took pay cuts, came in, and you know, fortunate to a certain extent where I'd saved up historical bonuses from, you know, living, you know, quite a modest life, if I'm honest, to save up money, to give myself an opportunity. Being smart about it, you know, rather than buying flash cars and flash houses, is having some money in the bank, which gave me opportunities. If an opportunity did come along, which thankfully it did, to grasp it and go with it. So, you know, still live quite a frugal life from that perspective, just in terms of what the next opportunity is, and kind of moving forward with whatever that will be. But I guess going back, those first 6 months were incredibly hard, where it wasn't profit making. But there was a lot of groundwork being done in terms of just setting it up so that it would become profitable, or you'd hope at that stage that it would become profitable. And I'll always remember we won our first big project. First radio sales was the company as it was then. 30 grand project, something like that. But the sense of winning that after 6 months of just, you know, battering your head, taking hits, was amazing. And amazingly, for the 8.5 years of business, we've been profitable every single month since. Wow. Which it's such a like turnaround from, you know, 6 months of just God, what have I done? Young family at home.
I wanted to ask about that because you chose to do it like at what some people would say is a crazy time. You've got a 1-year-old. I mean, what did the wife say? How was she going through?
It's probably worth going in a little bit of background. I'm comfortable talking about this. I probably wasn't. 4 or 5 years ago, we actually, our first child was stillborn. So we had a kid who came, stillborn baby. And before we had our next child, Frankie, who's now 10 and was one at the time I set up the business. Massively life-changing experience in terms of the prioritization of work and life.
Yeah.
It makes you think, right? You know, I was working a lot. You know, I was up and down to London, a lot of trains, and enjoyed it. But there's more to life than just work. And for me and my wife, you know, we're a partnership in this, and you know, that was a massive wake-up call for me, personally, in terms of getting that work-life balance. And I still believe in that today in terms of Differentology as a business. When I talk about people, I want people to have a work-life balance. Yes, we want to make money. Yes, we want people to have the best, you know, careers possible here. But if people start working every hour under the sun, we've got a resource problem. And if we've got a resource problem, that's on me to solve by recruitment and hiring and getting people in so they get that work-life balance. So I think for me that there was a big life-changing experience, if I'm honest, which put life into perspective. And we decided as a family that, you know, we wanted to be in control of our own destination. Part of that was owning a business.
Right.
Part of that was, you know, the freedom where I can make decisions. If I want to go home at lunchtime, I can go home at lunchtime. If I've got to pick the kid up from a school run, I can pick my lad up from a school run. And we try and instill that in the business still today, where there was a lot of good habits people picked up in lockdown, where they go for a 2-hour run at lunchtime and do work at 6 till 8 o'clock at night. If that fits their lifestyle and that's what they want to do, great.
Yeah.
We don't encourage people to work outside of the 9 to 5:30, but if it suits their lifestyle better that they want to do it, I'd soon rather that someone gets their work done and can go for a 2-hour run at lunchtime than, you know, feel like they're stuck at their desk working 9 to 5:30 and just getting fed up and burnt out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that there's life-changing experiences that probably, if I'm honest, and I did sit on some psychologists' couch would probably say, you know, certain life experiences given me a drive to want to do better for myself and for my family and for the business and for other people. But at the same time, I think it's just being a business owner, you've got a lot of ups and downs, but you're in charge of your own destination.
Yeah.
And I think I like the idea of being in control of my own destination. But also that's evolved over time. Now that there's more people in the business and there's more business owners, it isn't just my destination, it's everyone's destination. Yeah. And it's the responsibility for 30 different people.
Suddenly it's not just your life on the line, it's all these people's life on it. But
which is amazing, you know, it's great that, you know, we again, with the pandemic, when that hit, we asked everyone to take a 10% pay cut. I know industry standard was about 20%, I think, so we were quite good in that sense, but still, people had less money coming in, and you feel like, you know, you're making decisions that affect people's lives. But at the same time, we found that was a massive indication of people's character. In terms of, you know, we didn't have to bend people's arms to do it. Nobody complained. Nobody kicked off. We were very careful to explain the situation. Our revenues were down 25% overnight because of people just not spending and what happened. And actually, we asked people to take a 10% pay cut, and credit to everyone, they stood up and they took it. It didn't last that long, thankfully, and you know, within kind of 6 months, we were back up and everyone was back up at normal levels, and actually we ended up making more money in the pandemic than we did previously, but not for the first 4 or 5, 6 months of that. The second 6 months was amazing, the first 6 months were tough.
Kind of like the launch.
Yeah, like the launch, it is. You kind of, it's funny in the way that things go circular, right? And it comes full circle where there's 6 month periods where it's tough. I mean, thankfully for us, pandemic's obviously, hopefully a bit of a blip in the world landscape, although there's wars and everything else going on these days, so who knows. But yeah, I can't commend people enough in terms of what they put in when we asked them to step up, they stepped up. And I think that's a test of character, and that comes back recruitments. If you recruit the right people, that they'll bend over backwards for you. If you're a flexible organisation and you explain things to people. One of the big things that we do as a business that we never used to do, and it was only when the pandemic hit, when the financials, you know, for 4 or 5 months weren't as strong as they were pre-pandemic. We asked people to take a pay cut. How can you ask someone to take a pay cut if you don't explain what's going on and the reasons behind it? And so we're completely opaque now with people in terms of the performance of the business. We'll stand up every 6 months, we'll share PowerPoint slides, death by PowerPoint, but you know, we'll share slides to say this is the performance of the business.
Right.
So that, you know, thankfully things are good, and we've not had too many difficult conversations where we're saying the business has gone down or not performed or whatever. So it's been quite easy so far, if I'm honest, because we're on
It's always good news.
It's good news. We're on a growth trajectory, but I think people appreciate honesty.
Yeah.
And if you're honest with people, they respect you more for it.
I agree.
And they buy into your business more, and it's just easy then. You're dealing with people who you're at a similar level.
Yeah.
They respect you, you respect them, and you're having grown-up conversations.
Yeah, I think not everyone is that driven person who wants to start a company, blah blah. But everyone wants to be part of an organisation that is going somewhere, has a vision, and is that they can feel they belong.
Yeah.
So by sharing the truth and with that team, they can really buy into that. I'm in the circle. I'm at the table.
Yeah.
I'm with it.
And I think it comes down to. We want to give people opportunities. Not everyone, if I'm honest, not everyone in a business wants to be promoted. Not everyone's driven, and it takes all sorts in a business to make a business operate and kind of work. So we've got some people in the business who are really driven and share that hunger and want to get promoted. We've got other people who are just happy and they love what they're doing and they're happy with the level that they're at, which is great, and you need those kinds of people. But I think the fortunate position that we've been in with double-digit growth year on year is we're able to create jobs and we're able to promote people.
Yeah.
Because with growth comes opportunity for people.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think we've been really blessed is the ability to grow just means that there's avenues open up for different people to move within our business in different directions. We've got a massive belief in promoting people from within. So rather than looking at, we talked a little bit about it before, rather than looking at someone external who's got experience, we like to bring quite young people in and train them in what we do. But we also like to take people from different backgrounds and different experiences, non-traditional experiences to a certain extent, because they come at things from a completely different angle.
Absolutely.
And you learn from that and you grow as a business. So I think as long as we're growing, it provides opportunity for people, and as long as we're providing opportunity for people, we're hopeful that we can provide a career path for them and they'll stay with us for as long as they want, really.
Yes, it's inspiring, man. It's inspiring. So make sure we're taking notes. So, all right, we've talked about how it all came to be. We've talked about the culture of the company and the team. In terms of a business offering, you're a research agency, but what is different about Differentology?
Nice line, I like that. It's in the name, right? Differentology, we like to be different. What we mean by being different is challenging the status quo.
Okay.
That's part of the mantle that we have, where it's challenging preconceptions. And for years, I've worked in market research for 20 years, and you sit next to a market researcher at a dinner party, it's equivalent to sitting next to an accountant. It's dull, it's dry, it's boring. To a large extent, the market research industry isn't the most fun industry in the world, if I'm honest.
I mean, from the outside looking in, definitely. I feel like once you're in it, there are so many different aspects that are fun and interesting, but from the outside looking in, it looks like clipboards. Yeah.
So I think in terms of Differentology, it's about challenging the status quo. It's about being different, but not different for the sake of being different. It's about being different for the sake of being better.
Yeah.
And I think for us, there's four main elements that we do. One of the key philosophies that I've got is what can we learn from different industries that we can bring into market research. And that comes from methodologies. We try to be innovative and we like to push the boundaries in terms of how we ask questions, and we blend traditional research methodologies with innovative research methodologies. And it's almost looking beyond the market research sector to what's going on in the outside world, and how we can bring some of the technology into what we do and adapt that to a methodology. We're massive in terms of our delivery of research. We don't want to do research and insight that people don't stand up and take notice for. People are doing research and insight for a reason, and we want that to be embedded into the brand, the business plan, the culture, whatever it is, the reason that they're doing the business. We want people to be inspired by what we deliver. And part of that, if I'm honest, market research is pretty crap at that as well, traditionally, where death by PowerPoint we talked a little bit about. And for me, just as choosing the right methodology for the right audience, for the right project, choosing the right output for the right audience is quite important.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we'll work with clients who have internal research departments, and they'll want the 100-slide PowerPoint deck so they can get into the nitty-gritty of all the research, and that's fine, that's the right deliverable for the right audience, because they want to get under the bonnet and get to know the nuts and bolts. Similarly, we'll work with executive level boards where the chief exec's going to sit in the room and you've got 5 minutes to deliver what this £100,000 research project that they've spent the money on is telling them. And that's a different method of communication.
How would you communicate that in 5 minutes?
We've done loads of cool stuff. So I go back, someone once told me that David Cameron, when he was Prime Minister, whatever your political opinions are, whatever you think about, and this is quite interesting from a communication perspective, whenever he used to fly to foreign countries that he didn't know who he was meeting or know much about whatever topic he was going into, his team would produce a little 5-minute video for him to watch. He'd watch that 5-minute video and he'd assimilate enough information to be able to go and have a meaningful conversation with the person in whatever country it was that he was going to. That was fascinating to me, that the use of video as a method of communication, but also learning. You learn stuff from it. So we've learned a lot over the last 9 years from the creative industries and how people make adverts. They take a huge amount of information and boil it down to a 30-second TV spot or one poster that sits in a billboard, or 5-second pre-roll or whatever. And for us, it's a similar thing. It's about taking huge volumes of information, figuring out what that information means, turning it from research into insight into strategy, and then communicating that to someone that they can grasp what they've got to do. So we use video quite a lot. So we've used video outputs because they're pretty powerful, they're good for learning, and just a little 5-minute video in front of a chief exec where he can grasp what's gone on in this research project we found really powerful.
I think you're bang on the money there. There's a reason why how to is the most searched term on YouTube. There's a reason why we're doing video, because we could do these in written blogs, but for me at least, I'd rather sit and watch a video, and I can understand how big busy people who have, they've invested money in this, but don't want to sit through 100 bloody slides going through every single grain of rice. They want to actually just, what's the point? So that makes perfect sense.
And I think if we come back to Differentology and going back to part of the reason why it was set up and who we are and USPs and what we try and do as a business, we do what we call working at the intersections. So for all, we're a research agency, we're a strategic research consultancy, I guess, if you want to give it the official title. For all, we operate in that space. There's 4 key areas of the business. So it's about data, quant, research. It's about human understanding, which is traditionally qual research. But it's about strategy, it's about research information, it's about creativity, it's about technology. There's a bunch of different areas that feed into what we do. And taking the technology example, look beyond market research, look beyond what everyone else is doing and what's happening in your industry to what technology's out there and how you can apply that to what you do. Look at creative communication, look beyond what everyone else is doing, look at what people are doing in the creative communications industry, bring that into market research. So for all, we're a market research agency. We try and work at the intersections of a bunch of different sectors and bring in those expertise and skills. And we try and in-house that where we can. So with the creative team, we'll bring creatives into our business. It's just better and easier than outsourcing. Yes, you can outsource, but it's not the same.
They don't get the vision.
You bring creative people into your business, you sit next to creative people, it rubs off on you. We talk a little bit, I'm not a particularly creative person, but you sit next to people who are creative and you become more creative yourself. It's that osmosis where you learn from each other. I think whether it's a USP, don't really know, but I think for me, it's challenging the status quo, it's challenging how things have always been done, it's being different, not for the sake of being different, but for a good reason. And it's trying to learn from different industries and different sectors and bring that into what we do.
I really love that. And I see some synergies,
Tell me a little bit about...
We learn from the recruitment industry. We learn from marketing and online marketing and, how to actually find people and resource people, procurement. There's so many things that are not particularly market research that I can't really learn from other agencies within our sector, but in other sectors, there's some skill sets there and some tools that they use that is actually, if you're thinking about, I can take that and use that. And so that sort of way of thinking differently and saying, you know what, I'm going to think outside of the box to bring in different different methods to get the job done. Love it. Love that. Talk to me about.
Can I just add one point?
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The other point that I'd add is like I talked about the market research, industry sector being quite dry. I wouldn't underestimate just having fun at work.
Yeah.
Like Guinea Pig feels like a fun organisation, just in the name, right? It feels fun. Differentology. I'd like to think that people come to work and have some fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by just not doing like dull things. Every day's different, all that kind of thing. But actually just enjoying it, and we're all on a journey, we're all on our individual journeys, career paths, life, whatever. And like, we're serious as a business, but in being creative and doing cool stuff's good, doing cool methodologies makes it fun, working for interesting clients and people's really fun. But I'd hate to think that you come to work and you just kind of like enjoy it or have fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably, whether that's a USP, you can't really USP these kind of things, but
I think culture can't be a USP, but it is, right? Because that's the unique thing about the company is the culture. So
and we've done it. Like honestly, like I've sat on. I've been quite fortunate in being someone who works in the industry to sit on like a panel of judges when I've judged different award entries. And the amount of award entries that you get, which are just like on paper, bullet points, great achievements, but dry as anything.
Yeah.
And even when we do like award entries, we'll have fun doing it. We'll do some video, we'll drop some video in, we'll do some cool infographics, we'll take the piss out of a couple of people and take the piss out of some clients or some competitors or have a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Like I think because I've sat on that side of the fence where I'm judging awards, you get that many papers that you've got to read. The ones that do stand out are the ones that are a little bit different. They're a little bit fun. They're serious, but they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and we've been quite successful in that. And I think part of it is just want to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, and own it and be proud of it.
Yeah.
Confident about it. Say it with your chest.
Yeah, confidence is a big thing. And again, we talk a little bit about me as a personality. I'm quite introverted, as a character. I've said that a number of times. But there is an inner confidence to, I don't mind people challenging me, and I'm not always right, but a lot of the time I know what I'm doing, and I'm quite single-minded of, this is a good way to do something. Yeah. And also quite rationally driven, so because my background's quant and numbers and introverted and all the rest of it, I am quite a rational animal. Yeah. And I think that helps when you're making decisions, but not at the expense of people. You've got to have that emotional connection with people. Yeah. But you make the right calls for the right reason, and you communicate and explain to people, they trust you and they get it.
Those two balance, the emotional empathy versus the logical numbers. I think that balance there is the gut. When you're talking about trust your gut, I think that's what your gut is constantly doing.
You develop it over time, and it comes with experience and trial and error to a certain extent, and you learn from your mistakes. But I think similar to yourself and Guinea Pig, you're doing something right. You guys are flying. You go in places. I think for me, it comes to a certain extent from you and your character and your drive and what you want to do. That at the minute is your business. Challenge for you, as we talked about, is as you grow, it's going to be everyone else, and you've already got a great team coming.
Yeah, I mean the team. I couldn't be doing it. I've said it before, but I couldn't be doing any of this without the team. So when I hear people say, "Oh, it's you," I was like, "Yeah, but I'm being pushed up by these guys." At the same time, though, everything that you've just spoke about there, so I'm fairly good, I think, better than some people in the industry at getting my face around and being loud enough to talk on things and whatever. We called a meeting the other day. We said, "Everyone, listen. You see me, I'm talking about this, so I want you to pick one of these topics that you give a shit about and start talking about it as well. We don't have to wait until we get into 20, 30, 50, 40 people, I think that there's a balance, right? Because you can't just focus on all that and not actually do any work.
It's been fun and being serious at the right time. Yeah. And everyone knows that balance, but, It's a tough one, right? Because I'm not saying don't take things too seriously, because I'm the most serious person in the world when it comes to certain things. But it is that balance where actually, do you know what? There's other things going on in life, and part of my life experiences have taught me that. That whatever happens at work, you're going to go home, and you've hopefully, if you've got a good home life, you've still got stuff there to go home to.
Yeah, it's that work-home life is the same as a sort of work hard, play hard culture, right? Within the workplace as well, yeah, I think it's just really about leadership. It's all about leadership. It's all about seeing the people in your team who needs the help, because you're right, some people might not have that at home, and maybe they're relying on that sort of thing at work because they don't have that at home. There's so many different variables, but I mean, you're smashing it, come on.
But it's right, it's about getting to know people, right? I mean, we talk in our business a little bit about, we call my company credit card the Nando's card. Because I love Nando's, right? Whenever I'm up and down to London, I always go to Nando's King's Cross, you'll find me in there quite a lot. But whenever someone new comes into the business, we'll go out for Nando's.
Wait. What Nando's sauce?
Medium. Definitely medium, yeah, definitely medium.
Don't look at me like that. I'm lemon and herb, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Like, I like spicy stuff, but I prefer lemon and herb Nando's sauce. What's the problem?
But there's a serious element to it where you need to get to know people. And like you say, some people have got great home lives. Some people come to work to get away from things, and work is their life. And if that drives them, great.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what's right for the individual, what they want to get out of being here. And helping them to a certain extent, in a supportive role to help them achieve that.
No, bang on. So look, I'm conscious of your time. I know you guys are busy, so I'm going to ask one last question, and that is about a project this year. Wait, not this year. What month are we in now? In the last 12 months, the best project or the most interesting project, the most different project that you've either worked on or that your team has worked on?
So there's one that stands out really. Not in terms of like methodologies and cool things that we've done, more in terms of the impact that it had on our business at that point in time, and also just the subject matter was really interesting. Really? I think it was fascinating. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that one. It kind of came about. So if we go back to 2019, back end of 2019, December 2019, we won the MRS Breakthrough Business of the Year. Life was cock a hoop. 3 months later, pandemic hit, and we went into lockdowns and stuff like that. We're really fortunate in that award win got us on the consideration list for a new client who I can't tell you who it is, new client who we hadn't worked with before, big multinational, huge business, global, spend loads on research, and good for us. But we were the wild card, so there was we were one of 6 agencies pitching. The only reason we got in was because of the award winners, the breakthrough business and stuff like that. But we went into that as the outsider, the 1 in 6 long shot. Lizzie and her team absolutely smashed the pitch, best pitch I've probably ever seen at the right time. If ever we needed to land a new client in a big project, was 6 weeks into lockdown, the first lockdown. So we managed to win that. So incredibly proud of the team. At that time, pulling that out of the hat was amazing for us. Our second biggest client now, I think. So that we've gone on to be massive for us. But it was a brand positioning piece.
Okay.
So it was using market research to help steer that brand in a new direction.
Right.
Big global brand. You probably find this quite interesting just in terms of your interests and passion points and stuff. But this brand had traditionally sold itself as a global brand, and it was all about how great the world was when it was a global environment. The backdrop of that in more recent years was Donald Trump coming into power, Brexit happening, everyone looking inward rather than outward. Nationalism, far-right movements, whatever, just like the world going to shit, basically. And going from this lovely place where it's like outwardly looking and global to quite inwardly facing and selfish to a certain extent from a national territory perspective. And that had a massive impact for this particular brand because it was selling itself as a global brand.
And their message was no longer resonating.
And the message wasn't necessarily resonating. So I think in terms of that subject matter, that was fascinating. And we got to speak to people in a qualitative setting right the way across the globe, different languages, multiple territories. And fascinating just to understand how different people think across the world. And you can generalise things to a certain extent.
But things are different.
But things are different. And that was fascinating because one, it was quite topical. Two, it's probably something that you'd be really interested in.
I'm listening to forget why weren't we talking back then?
And three, it's almost that wider societal impact of what's going on in the world and how we as a little small cog of a research agency can help a bigger brand understand what's going on. So I think that stands out as just a really interesting project.
Yeah.
Whereas other stuff we've done has been cool because it's a cool brand, it's a cool methodology, it's a cool creative way of communicating information. That was, it just stands out as the right time and a really, interesting piece that we did.
I think that, it's interesting because it doesn't really matter the size of the research agency, right? We have this almost unique profession where one good piece of work can literally change the world. I know it sounds so dramatic, whatever, but that one piece of work for the right client who can then do something with those insights can be world changing. So
it happens on loads of levels, right? It can be changing to an individual that you've helped out with a problem. It can be changing to an organisation that you've helped move in a better direction, or it can have a higher level, as you kind of talked about. So I think it's making a meaningful difference to whatever level you're going for, really.
That's wicked, man. But look, thank you so much for letting me travel up. We're gonna float around and just check you guys out in action. But look, thank you so much.
That's all right. Well, welcome to Newcastle.
Welcome to